Most people don't know what's holding them back, but you do because you listen to me, Sam, your self-care guru and journal junkie. Welcome to Journal Entries, your safe place where you can tune in weekly to get tips, tricks, and journal prompts to uncover your feelings, gain clarity, and make your move. Hello, welcome to this week's journal entry. This week, I'm actually answering a question that somebody submitted over on my Instagram stories. The question was, what journal prompts do you have for days that are just blah? I loved this question so much because it's so universal and it's so frequent for some people. There have been seasons of my life where I wake up very consistently and I don't feel like depressed, but I just feel like blah, like mediocre. And when I feel this way, at least, I'm not quite sure how you feel, but when I feel blah, it just sort of feels like I'm like a plastic bag floating through the wind. Like I don't really have any emotions, good or bad. It's hard to be grateful on those days. If I'm productive at work, it's just kind of like I'm just checking things off. I'm just kind of in the zone of just get in, do the thing, get out, like that sort of thing. It just doesn't feel very fulfilling. My life doesn't feel intentional. I don't feel like particularly happy or grateful, like I mentioned, or loving, or like I'm like being the best or even I'm not showing up the way that I want to show up. And we all want to feel like we are those things. And so that's why I love this question. And I hope that what I'm about to share with you can help you the next time that you wake up and you feel blah, or maybe your blahness comes later on in the day, maybe at night. So save this episode for whenever it strikes. Here's the first thing that I do when it hits. I flip through the quote unquote Rolodex in my mind and I ask myself, what or where is this blah feeling stemming from? Is it my relationship or a friendship or family or parenting, my health? Like sometimes it's my nutrition or my workouts, or is it career? And then if possible, can you dig a little bit deeper? Like if it's something with your career, did something specific happen at work? If it is your health, is it the fact that you have not been eating healthy and you're just beating yourself up for that? Or you haven't been exercising and you're just really frustrated at that? If it's your relationship, did you get in an argument with that person? Or are you just kind of like, I don't know, not in a good place for one reason or another? So flip through like all the broad areas of your life. And when you do this, it might sound like a really big task, but when you do this with the intention of identifying where this blah is stemming from, as soon as you hit the point where it's stemming from, at least I feel like a little ping in my body. I'm like, yes, that's it. Or it doesn't really feel good. It's not like a yes, it's like a, ooh, oh, that's it. Like a gut punch of like, oh, right. It was that argument with a friend, or it was that, I don't know, that thing that happened at work, or that customer, or whatever. So kind of broadly identify where it's stemming from, or potentially who, that sort of thing. Then step 2, get out your journal. And this is where you're going to journal on how are you feeling exactly, especially now that you know the generic location and where it stemmed from. Now is the time where you can honor the actual feeling or the situation that happened and just share details about what it is. The hardest part is when you still can't really identify it, like it's truly just almost like unidentifiable. But if that's how you're feeling, come up with any sort of thing. And again, flip through the Rolodex of your emotions. This is where, oh man, it was probably about like 8 months ago. I did a podcast episode with the Recovery Box. And I got, if you're watching this on YouTube, I got these wheels. One is called the needs wheel, one is the body sensation wheel, and one is the feelings wheel. So I bring this up because you can kind of flip through in your mind all of the different feelings. If you have this feelings wheel, it's really great because it starts off with basic ones like happy, fearful, sad, angry, surprise, and disgust. But then for each one of those, like maybe you're fearful. Then it gets to the next level of emotions. Not only are you fearful, but are you feeling like on edge? Are you feeling stressed, hypervigilant, reluctant, exposed, panicked, anxious, cautious? It's awesome. And then one step further. So let's say you're feeling fearful and exposed. Then the deeper feeling might be unprotected or vulnerable. So maybe you started off feeling blah, but then after going through these feelings, you're realizing it's because you're feeling vulnerable, right? And there's so many different ways that this could go, but just kind of asking yourself the deeper feeling underneath it. Or if it is an obvious situation that happened, just journal about that. So this is the step where you just journal out all of the details. And this alone sometimes cures it. Just getting it out of your brain and onto paper. And sometimes the healing factor in this is perspective, especially if something happened like last night or earlier in the week. Giving yourself time to write it out and process it, you might be writing something and you're like, oh, well, that's silly just because that's not true. Or I'm exaggerating this, or I actually feel a different way. Like I don't feel that way anymore, or that's an old belief. So just kind of journal it all out. Step 3 is if you could proceed with your day with a new thought or belief that is not blah, what would you choose to believe? This is also really powerful. This is where you get to choose those thoughts. I've done this a couple times just because it's really refreshing and really powerful, knowing that we are in control of what we believe. The next step, step 4, and the final step is how can you incorporate that into your day? Examples of how I've done 3 and 4 together is I was thinking about what will my new beliefs be? And then how can I like remember this? Because it's really hard when you're feeling blah. It's not so easy to just jump out of that. And I realized that what I want to feel is I want to feel successful. I want to feel competent, important, and smart. And so I wrote it on a sticky note. That was step 4 of how can I incorporate this? I put it on a sticky note and I put it right next to my computer so that all day I was looking at the sticky note that said, I am successful, I am competent, I am important, I am smart. That alone and I still have it up. This was back in July and I still have that up on my desk. And every time I look at it, it's just really refreshing. Let me open up my journal now because the other day I just continued journaling on it. In fact, that was my whole entry this one day. I started it off saying, if I could choose my thoughts today, what would I choose? And I just journaled about all of the different ways that I wanted to feel that day, all of the different things that I wanted to have happen to me in that day, in my business and in my relationships, all of the thoughts that I wanted to have. And it just felt so good. It felt incredible. And then how I was able to remind myself of that is I took certain words from that journal entry and I put it as an alarm in my phone, and I had it go off. I think I had it go off twice that day, once in the morning and then once in the afternoon. So you could set alarm reminders that contain certain words, like maybe for you it was successful and smart, or maybe it's a phrase that is something that you want to believe or think that day. Another way that you can incorporate your new beliefs into your day is ask your bestie to text you. Text your friend and say, hey, I'm feeling this way at like 2 p.m. Could you shoot or anytime today? Surprise me with a text. That would be even more fun. Surprise me with a text reminding me of how great I am. Maybe leave it open-ended like that. And that way you're going to get a text at some point, and it's just going to be this really nice boost where if you do happen to slip back into that blah headspace, it's just this really nice reminder of like, snap out of it. It's a feeling that you don't have to choose to believe. You are all of these other things, and best friends are always a good reminder of that can pull us out of that. The last idea that I had of how you can incorporate these new thoughts that you want to choose to believe throughout your day is actually an idea that I got from my twin sister that I found so hysterical when I found out she does this. Whenever she orders something online, like apparel mostly, or even anything from Amazon, there's usually an option at checkout where you can select if it's a gift or not. And then if it is a gift, you can choose to write a note to that person. Even when my sister is ordering something for herself, she always chooses that it's a gift, and she always writes a note to herself. And the note is like, you deserve this. You're amazing. It's these positive affirmations that she always forgets that she writes. But then when the package arrives, even if it's 1 or 2 day Amazon Prime, it arrives and she's like, feels so good and feels reminded about all of these things. And it's funny to her too. She's like, oh, right, now I remember writing that. But it's these really uplifting things that just make her feel good throughout the day. So you can always, I'm giving you permission to go buy something and to use that feature, to buy it as a gift to yourself and use that note feature, writing something positive and reminding yourself that you do deserve that. You do so much. We all slip into these blah feelings from time to time, and it's up to us to recognize it. That's the first step. And then understand that we don't have to sit in that feeling. Sometimes I hear that people don't like to journal, or the quote unquote downside of journaling is that you do sit in that feeling and you keep harping on the same feeling. But there's a difference between doing that and journaling to get it out of your brain and then actively choosing a different thought, actively choosing a different definition or a different belief that you want to actually be having that day or that week or that month or however long this is happening for you. I will add all of those 4 steps into the show notes in case you need a reminder, especially because the next time you have a blah feeling, circle back to this episode and you won't have to listen to the whole thing. You can just open up the show notes and be on the path to feeling better. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's journal entry. I love connecting with my listeners, so make sure you screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at samantha.s.says so I know you're listening. And don't forget to grab your free training and journal prompts at www.samanthapenkoff.com/podcast.